The next 60 minutes here on NewsNight. Ghana facing another major hurdle in desperate attempt to get debt relief as Germany declares it is only prepared to help if certain conditions are met.
We insist that those measures that can be taken here in this country have to be taken. There has to be an answer in Ghana to the 50 technical and non-technical losses in the energy sector. If that is not resolved, I don't see how we can find a sustainable solution for the financial problems of the country.
We'll hear from the German ambassador to Ghana on the day the finance minister announced the make or break high-power delegation to China to plead for their support with debt relief has been postponed. Also tonight, former minority leader Harun Idrisu takes on the Electoral Commission as he leads the NDC in his opposition to the new ECCI, which makes the Ghana card the sole identity document to become a voter.
That is a constitutional wrong, unacceptable to a country committed to multi-party constitutional democracy. Mr. Speaker, the right to vote and to be voted for is so sacred.
We have details as Deputy Local Government Minister Obi Amwa says the guarantor system has been abused, reason why it must be outlawed.
This system has been abused in the sense that people overnight became guarantee contractors, where they join a queue, get registered, they stand by and say that they are waiting to endorse 10 or 5 people.
We are live in Parliament because the debate is still raging as we speak. And then later, Tripoli District Security Council meeting underway as the residents of Wincheke, particularly women and children, flee the area as renewed violence there claimed the lives of 2 with 5 others injured.
It's only 3 dead, just confidently confirmed that they have died. But what I'm hearing is about 5.
And in business, Ghana's quest to secure debt cancellation from China may face some serious challenges.
And in sports, Executive Council member of the Ghana Football Association has questioned the low turnouts at various stadium conundrum, insisting the situation is only peculiar to Accra.
You want to join us later for sports and business, and I'm dying to hear from you tonight. 055-1111-997. My name is Evans Mensah. Let's start tonight with that next major hurdle, our attempt to get debt relief from our multilateral, bilateral commercial lenders. Ghana is tonight facing another major hurdle in this desperate attempt to get debt relief. Germany, one of Ghana's major bilateral donors, has tonight declared it is only prepared to help if certain conditions are met. The announcement comes on the day we heard from the finance minister announcing that the postponement of the make or break high-power delegation to China to plead for their support with our debt relief efforts. We'll have more on that China challenge shortly. But first, it was President Akufo-Addo who first publicly appealed to the German finance minister for help in getting China to the table.
We are looking for, as quickly as possible, a credible committee to be established, so we will have the body with whom we can engage to bring those discussions as quickly as possible. You have good relations with China. We'd like you to encourage China to participate. Very important consideration for us is the Financial Stability Fund that has been promised as one of the key outcomes of these negotiations. And
well, today, the German ambassador to Ghana, Daniel Crew, has granted an exclusive interview to my colleague Blaise Soga to be aired fully on the Diplomatic Affairs show tomorrow at 10 p.m. on the Joy News channel, in which he lays out a number of strict conditions he says Ghana must address to earn the help of Germany.
The biggest loss maker in Ghana is the energy sector. In this sector alone, each year 1.5 billion new debt is piled up. Wow. So if that is not solved, then you can ask the IMF for 10 billion. You still will not solve the problem in the medium term. So you mentioned the visit of our Minister of Finance, who recently had talks in Ghana, and his message was clearly, yes, we are prepared to help.
Right.
But we are prepared to help only if certain conditions are met. First of all, we insist that those measures that can be taken here in this country have to be taken. The second condition is that yes, we are willing to take our share of responsibility as one of the major bilateral donors to Ghana, but only if all the others also join in this effort. And there is a multilateral framework that was set up exactly for these kind of crises, and we urge and try to convince all stakeholders in this process to stick to this agreed framework. It's the G20 common framework.
But that framework, I'm afraid, Mr. Ambassador, is facing some setback, especially on the part of China. Our president was very categorical in that statement where when he engaged the finance minister from your country, he's asking for the help of Germany to navigate that hurdle with China when it comes to the Paris Club. Practically, what's your country going to do in that regard to help?
Well, I think we all have to try to convince China also to take its share in this process. China is the largest bilateral donor to Ghana, so China has to be part of the solution. Now, Ghana has its means to convince China to do that. We, Germany, will also use our channels to convince that it is in our common interest that we all agree on a way forward, including in the interests of China. So this is the only way we can try to get China to the table. Your president is rightly referring to the case of Zambia, where it took very, very long until China in the end agreed to come to the table. We hope that this time, with a concerted effort, we might be capable of convincing China to shorten this process, because time is of the essence in the case of Ghana.
When you were speaking, you talked about some internal mechanisms that as a country we could deploy as our side of the bargain, just to complement your efforts from the international community. And looking back, looking at the country where we were rising economically and now there's a downturn, how do you feel we could be fulfilling our side of the bargain as part of the internal conditions you feel we could be meeting?
Let me point to three elements. Right. The biggest loss maker in Ghana is the energy sector. In this sector alone, each year 1.5 billion new debt is piled up.
Wow.
So if that is not solved, then you can ask the IMF for 10 billion. You still will not solve the problem in the medium term. So there has to be an answer in Ghana to the 50 technical and non-technical losses in the energy sector. If that is not resolved, I don't see how we can find a sustainable solution for the financial problems of the country. The second part is on the other side of the budget, and that is the revenues. Ghana has one of the lowest tax to GDP ratios, not even 13%. So we have been cooperating with the local authorities and setting up a very smart system of property tax collection. So I think that is an important way forward, and this has to be done, and processes and decision making has to be faster to meet the goals, to be able to meet the targets that have been agreed with the IMF. And the third point I want to raise is that I'm still amazed on the procedures for how the budget is set up, and how difficult it is to get an understanding of how this all works. And I think that is something that has to be approved.
And there is the German ambassador to Ghana, Mr. Cruz, speaking there to my colleague, Blazer Soga. You can catch that full interview. It's going to be on the Diplomatic Affairs. It's at 10 p.m. Tomorrow evening on the Joy News channel. By the way, this was happening today on the day when the finance minister also has been talking about this very urgent delegation that should be heading to China anytime soon. We're hearing tonight that delegation, that their travel has now been postponed. I'll tell you why pretty shortly. We'll speak now to Professor Peter Quartey, who is a director of the Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research, who joins us via Zoom right now. Professor Quartey, thank you for your time here on NewsNight. Hello, Prof.
Hello.
Great to have you, Prof. I'm grateful that you could join us on NewsNight tonight. Before I even come to you, I want to get the very latest from my colleague, presidential correspondent Elton Brobe, who has also been working his sources as far as this trip to China is concerned. Elton joins us on the line. Elton, so what do we know tonight as far as that trip is concerned? The finance minister early in the week said that the delegation, which we believe he was going to lead himself, should be leaving either today or latest by this weekend. Are they still leaving?
No, the information we have is that that trip is not coming on, at least for now. From what I picked from the corridors of power at the Jubilee House, the finance minister was expected to leave town today and then hopefully start the engagements over the weekend into next week. But what I've picked is that the trip has been cancelled, and it's not because the government is not willing to go. The cancellation is actually at the request of the Chinese authorities, because what I've been told is that the Chinese government, the party is the National People's Congress of China, and they have an upcoming meeting, more like a congress, to take stock of what has happened within the government so far, and then look to how the governing party is hoping to achieve the target set for itself. So it's going to be quite a congress that will take some days for it to be exhausted. It is unclear when the congress will come to an end. Now, the latest on this is that government is looking at the end of March to now go to China and then seek to get them to agree to this debt cancellation. So it is not happening this week. My information is that the National People's Congress of China, their upcoming meetings, which is going to take days, is starting this weekend. And for that reason, the request is that government rather come at the end of March. Government had programmed itself to go to the IMF board in this next month, March, with the hope that it will be able to secure a deal before the end of March. So Ghana could start the second quarter of 2023 under an IMF program. Now, looking at what is happening now, Ghana owes about $13 billion in Euro bonds and $4 billion in bilateral loans as of September 2022, which $1.7 billion is owed to China, according to the International Institute of Finance. The government is seeking to restructure the $4 billion because China holds a larger part of this money, $1.7 billion. There is therefore the need for them to come to some kind of agreement with China towards debt cancellation. China has already agreed for a bilateral discussion relating to this matter. Now, the obstacle is that the Chinese government itself has this upcoming meeting under the auspices of the National People's Congress of China, and it's going to take days. So the program is that government delegation should rather come at the end of March,
and that's going to obviously pose significant challenges when it comes to dealing with that quickly before the executive board sits when it comes to the IMF. But quickly, Elting, who's going to be on this delegation once they leave?
So if there's going to be the same list that will go at the end of March, then we will have the finance minister who is going to lead the delegation, Kenneth Orata, together with one of his deputies, also the governor of the Bank of Ghana. A deputy governor also accompanied them, head of research at the Bank of Ghana, the technical team responsible for some of these things at the Bank of Ghana, chairman of the Finance Committee of Parliament, and then the rep from the office of the president, preferably the economic advisor from the office of the vice president. Evans.
Elton, thank you very much. Professor Peter Quote is on the line with me. Prof, we're all hearing this today. The China challenge is very, very obvious. But then let's throw in the interview, an announcement by the German ambassador to Ghana laying out the conditions for their support. What do you make? Give me your reaction to what you heard there from the German ambassador and the conditions that he spelt out.
Well, good evening to your discerning listeners and viewers. The German ambassador was very frank. He was being honest with the issues. These are things that we all know, and we ought to bite the bullet. The energy sector losses itself is a problem which we ought to address. If we don't, despite all the assurances the IMF program is likely to bring, it will erode the gains in a very short period. We all know the losses.
Minister, talking about this very urgent delegation.
Well, I think there's a feedback there in the line. Apologies to you, Prof. I hope that it may have been corrected now. Prof, can you hear me? Yeah, it has been corrected. Thank you very much. You're making your point.
Good, thank you very much. So my point is that if we don't address this structural challenges, internal weaknesses, and even if we sign on to the IMF program, the gains will be eroded so quickly. The losses, as is being estimated, is quite huge. The energy sector losses, and every year, as we were told, about 1.5 billion is lost. So if we don't address it, that is going to be a challenge. Then also our tax GDP ratio is quite low. But honestly, it's not the lowest. Nigeria is below 10%, Ghana is around 13.4%. But we ought to achieve something better. The Sub-Saharan African average of about 15 to 20% is what we should aim to achieve. Otherwise, we will continue to borrow if we don't raise enough resources domestically. So I believe these are all things that if we do, it will help us. And of course, Germany and many of the bilaterals will be very happy to support us if we put our house in order. Yes, for other creditors, they all have to sign on. And I'm sure the G20 framework sets out to do this, to get IMF and World Bank are trying to get some of these bilateral and private creditors to come on board. So we can save not just Ghana, but many of the African countries who are debt distressed as we speak.
I mean, Prof, he used the word condition. It's pretty been a while since you heard anybody who's trying to help in a poor country use the word conditions. The IMF deliberately have done away with that word. Now we're looking at a more consultative process. But he used that word. Now, if you apply the strict definition, then you must meet the conditions before you get the help. Considering the time scale we're dealing with, the IMF Executive Board meeting is in March. Now the China, the Congress meeting is also then pushing the delegations meeting into March. Isn't that going to be a problem?
Well, when we use the word condition, I would use it reservedly, interpret it reservedly, because even if we want to clean the energy sector, we want to ensure that losses are cut out. It will not take 3 months or 2 months or even 6 months. It might take longer. So for some of these things, they want to see commitment on our part, commitment to reduce the losses, those distribution losses, and many of the losses that we incur. We need to be pricing right. A lot of the energy utilities are subsidized, and many of the utility companies complain about how our pricing regime. We sometimes wait for too long before we adjust prices, and if we want to invest in these sectors, then we ought to be regularly adjusting the prices rather than waiting for so long. And then there's a big bank which does not inure to the benefit of the consumer or the ordinary worker. So, say the IMF conditionalities in quotes, I mean, some of these things that they put out, they expect to see commitment rather than solving them within a day or within the shortest possible time. Once we have clear path, clear commitment, clear policies in place, they are willing to sign you on and then monitor you. So all of these indicators are triggers before they disburse funds. That is why the 3 billion is not going to disburse in one go. It's not going to be a bullet, but they will disburse over time. So once you meet some of these triggers, then they disburse, and then you continue to effect the changes and get further support from the IMF. Same with the other bilaterals as well. Once they see progress, they are very happy to come on board.
Professor Peter Quartey, thank you very much. Professor Peter Quartey is the director at the Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research at the University of Ghana. You're still live here on NewsNight. It's on Joy 99.7 FM. I will be sharing your messages with the rest of the world, and I see many of you joining us with your thoughts on the stories you've heard so far, right from top story. But I want to take it to Parliament first of all, because the former minority leader Harun Idrisi says the Electoral Commission must not be allowed to lay its new constitutional instrument in Parliament. The new CI makes the Ghana card the only identification document to be used to guarantee citizenship and age. The minority are also opposed to a regulation in the CI which requires persons who want to register to do so at an EC district office. According to Harun Idrisi, these regulations will disenfranchise Ghanaians.
Mr. Speaker, for the record, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, Ghanaians who have attained the age of 18 years have been denied the opportunity to be captured as registered voters. This is a constitutional wrong. Let anybody challenge me with facts and figures, Mr. Speaker. There has been no voter register opportunity for Ghanaians who have attained 18 years since 2021. That is a constitutional wrong, unacceptable to a country committed to multi-party constitutional democracy. Mr. Speaker, the right to vote and to be voted for is so sacred. Even for you elected members of parliament, one of the minimum qualifications of you to get voted as MPs is to show that you are a registered voter. That is the weight the Constitution imposes on this in Article 94 of the Constitution. So, Mr. Speaker, the Electoral Commission, by virtue of their existing CI, have no reason to tell anybody and to tell this august House why they have so failed to capture Ghanaians who have attained 18 years. So, Mr. Speaker, we have a problem with it.
But speaking in defense of the EC's proposed constitutional instrument, MP for Krapim South and Deputy Local Government Minister Obi Amwa says the EC was justified in seeking to use the Ghana card as a sole identity document.
At the meeting, and even if you look at this report, we seem to acknowledge that the guarantor system has been abused. And indeed, as practitioners, the thought behind the guarantor system was to acknowledge that where a prospective registrar did not have any means of identification, they could fall on their parents, their spouses, their children, close family members to guarantee and sign a form that indeed I know this person is qualified to be registered. And that as we have moved on along the years, this system has been abused in the sense that people overnight became guarantee contractors, where they join a queue, get registered, they stand by and say that they are waiting to endorse 10 or 5 people that they know them, they should be registered. It's a worry which we must take into consideration. And indeed, if for any reason the guarantee system has been maintained, all these issues must be addressed.
Let me take it to Parliament now. Parliamentary correspondent Kweku joins us on the telephone line right now. Kweku, this debate over the CI, before I came on air, I noticed that Parliament was still on the floor and the MPs were still aggressively debating this matter. Has it been resolved now? What's the latest on this?
Evans, actually, it has not been resolved. And what we've just seen in Parliament is the scenes that we witnessed around the e-levy, fisticuffs in Parliament. Members of the press were asked to leave the chamber for MPs to go into conclave and discuss the issues. We understand the minority in the Parliament did not agree that because the Electoral Commissioner, Madam Evans Mensah herself, was not around, they were not going to allow that committee of the whole session to go ahead. And our understanding is that they were near physical. MPs were at each other's throat right there in the chamber. I'm just around there. There's a lot of noise in the chamber you would hear. Obviously, our cameras aren't in there at the moment, but we understand the NEC MPs and the majority MP side have come together neck to neck in near fisticuffs on the floor of the parliament, because the NDC are saying that they will not allow the EC ladies document one, and that even if the EC boss herself does not come to parliament as a show of respect, then they will not allow that. And that disagreement has led to near fisticuffs in the House, and MPs are still in the chamber, and journalists are outside of it.
I mean, and so it's been quite a while since we've seen scenes such as you just described in there. But I'm also interested in the fact that Harun Idrisu is playing a very central role in this, although we know he's been removed.
Indeed, at the time these discussions around the ECCI started, Harun Idrisu was the minority leader and was the ranking member on the Special Budget Committee, which considered the EC's budget at the time. It was around that period that these matters surrounding EC's new CI came up. And so today, when the Special Budget Committee's report was moved on the floor of the House, Harun Idrisu came down and he was the one who seconded the motion to discuss it. He was the one who led the minority in this debate to say that the EC's new CI will cause confusion, will cause chaos if it is allowed to go through. Indeed, he is not in the chamber now, but he predicted that if the EC insists that they are going to push this through, not only will the chaos be on the streets on the streets in the country and at the various polling stations, it could trickle down to Parliament, and it's currently happening. Currently, we've seen that a lot of the security personnel in Parliament have all been asked to move into the chamber, obviously to try and calm tensions, to try and separate their sides who are at each other's notes over this. But Harun Idrisu has been playing such a central role. He is the one who led the minority in this debate today.
Kweku, we'll return to you pretty shortly and hopefully get a sense from some of the MPs who are maybe out of the chamber, get a sense of what really transpired when they asked you to leave. It's rare, Kweku, is it not, that in a debate such as this on a CI, they will ask journalists to leave the chamber. This normally happens when you're dealing with the committee of the whole, but it's pretty rare to have a debate around CI behind closed doors.
Indeed, Evans, the last time there was a similar conversation when the National Identification Authority were asked to come to the floor surrounding these matters of the EC's new CI and the Ghana card registration, we were allowed to be in the chamber. But just when the House moved into committee of the whole for this specific discussion, the marshals came up to the press gallery, cleared everybody, including even parliamentary, the people who work for Parliament, who cover parliamentary proceedings for their Facebook and their YouTube, their media, were also asked to leave their cameras where other things were taken. It is not clear if they knew how things had heated up, if things could go to that level, because normally such reports would have been debated within an hour or so, but this was debated for a long time. It was started around 3 p.m. up till about 6 o'clock. Parliament was still on the matter of this new CI, and it appeared that both sides of the House are taking some sort of entrenched positions on this matter. While the minority said they are not going to allow the CI to be laid, the majority side have contended that the EC is an independent constitutional creature who must be allowed to do its job. So, Evans, those are the things in Parliament at the moment.
Kweku, thank you very much. And Kweku is our parliamentary correspondent. We will return to Parliament and get the very latest in the course of the bulletin with everything that is happening there. As you've just been listening to him in Parliament, the security, they've been asked to move in possibly to the floor of the chamber to try and calm tensions. The last time we saw this was just after the 2020 elections in the attempt to get a new speaker elected. It's been quite a while since we've seen such chaotic scenes on the floor of Parliament, and what Kweku is describing tonight is playing out to be just that, with MPs almost exchanging blows. More on this definitely in the bulletin here on NewsNight, and we will take you later to Nigeria, where we are counting down to that election, all important election in Nigeria on Saturday. And the terrible reports coming up to Nigeria as we count down to that election, including a Nigerian Senate candidate who had been shot dead and his body burned. Well, we're going live there and bringing you the very latest on this as we build up to that election. Stay with us. George is here with business. Hello, George.
Hi, Evans. And coming up in business, Ghana's quest to secure debt cancellation from China may face some serious setbacks, and improved dollar support from Bank of Ghana slows recent pressure on the Ghana cedi. The business news on NewsNight is brought to you by MTN Business. Welcome to the new world of business. Allianz Life and Ghana Pay. Back to business on NewsNight. Let's now settle for the details. And Ghana's quest to secure debt cancellation from China may face some serious challenges. Now, this is due to China's stance of not offering debt cancellation to countries. There is more in this report.
The Asian economic giant will traditionally extend the time taken to pay these debts as review the interest payments. Sources close to the Chinese government say they don't also believe in the philosophy of debt cancellation. This could mean that Ghana may struggle in getting the Chinese government to grant its request to cancel the about $1.7 billion debt. There is also the geopolitics angle to this whole push for the debt cancellation, that is, the Russian-Ukraine war. This is because Ghana is now seen as being on the side of the West, and that could be a major setback to government in trying to close a deal with the Chinese. But could this impact on Ghana's chances of closing a deal with the IMF? Well, it has become a million-dollar question that many are struggling to get some answers to. This is because the IMF has argued that it is only looking forward to the commitment of these external creditors on Ghana's debt exchange program and not an outright agreement that Ghana's debt will be cancelled. Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta has been forced to move its debt cancellation engagement with the Chinese government to the ending of next month from next week. This is due to the Chinese government Congress meeting. This gathering often results in shutting down the entire government activities.
And that is the Business Desk report. Improved support from the Bank of Ghana is helping to deal with the recent pressure on the Ghana cedi. The local currency had been under some pressure since last week. However, it appears this challenge slowed yesterday, with high level of depreciation also going down significantly. Some market watchers are linking it to market intervention by the Bank of Ghana with some $1 million, 12 Ghana cedis. 95 pesos should get you $1. Now, this is based on the average codes that some of the major banks are offering to their clients. Now, 13 Ghana cedis, 20 pesos should get you $1 from the Forex bureaus. Let's get to other stories. And the National Entrepreneurship Innovation Program is set to disperse $200,000 to some entrepreneurship innovation program in the country. This is being launched under the NEIP Hub Accelerator Grant Program. Chief Executive of the National Entrepreneurship Innovation Program, Kofi Ofosun-Kansah, said the grant program is geared towards supporting and developing entrepreneurship in the country.
We are going to provide support to the entrepreneurship and innovation hubs across the country, about 50 of them. Now, what do these hubs do? What they do is to do hand-holding of firms in their communities, nurture the ideas of startups, support them, run incubator programs, run accelerator programs, ensure that we are seeding ventures in the communities. As the ventures are nurtured and planted and they mature, they grow to become big SME and they'll be able to hire more people. That is why government has provided this capacity building support to the entrepreneurship hubs.
Chief Executive of the National Entrepreneurship Innovation Program, Kofi Ofosun-Kansah. The Ministry of Food and Agriculture has assured that it will ensure budgetary allocation for all the agri-colleges to help keep its legacy in modernized agriculture in Ghana. According to the Deputy Minister of Agric, Frimpong Ado, maintaining these facilities is going to help to ensure that the technical policies of the country is modernized and support the sector to grow.
Once these facilities have been upgraded, it is up to the ministry to also put it in the annual budget for maintenance. Because if you're able to maintain these facilities, it will be with us for a long time to come, and that will be good for the country. In order for the program not to die, all we need to do is to have budgetary allocation for the maintenance of the facilities. And that's exactly what we are going to ensure that we do.
That is Mr. Dr. Yafrin Ponado. He's the Deputy Minister of Agric. It looks like things are clear on the table in terms of what government should be doing to ensure that it gets the required donor support, in terms of ensuring that they put in place mechanisms where Ghanaians can share the tariffs, in terms of paying the real tariffs for consumers in the country. These are the things that the German government has actually put forward to ensure that we make some progress in the whole debt cancellation program going forward for the economy. The Ambassador Daniel Crew has been speaking to us in terms of what Ghana should be doing to ensure that they participate in this whole debt exchange program. And Evans, that is what it means. There's some interesting developments there in terms of what we should be doing as a country to ensure that we get the required donor support or from these donors to participate in this whole debt exchange program events. And for some people, they argue that it is very interesting. Now, events on PM Express Business Edition tonight, you're looking at skills, availability, and competence. Some of these businesses are arguing that they are struggling to get the required skills to fill the vacancies in the offices. But is it really a skills problem or a competence issue facing major Ghanaian businesses in the country today? We'll be engaging Constance Swanika. She's the founder, CEO of DIT. We'll also be talking to Dr. Kojo Evans Mensah Pramba. He's the Director General of the Development, that's the National Development Planning Commission, and also Dr. Michael Ejekumado. He's CEO and founder of Mikado Holdings, and Karen Evans Ham. She's Chief Executive or Chief Operating Officer and Principal Architect at Skepta Global. As you look at skills, availability, and competence, a major challenge for businesses in Ghana at 9 p.m. the Joy News Channel on Multi TV.
You want to make a date is at 9 p.m. and it's going to be also across many social media platforms, Facebook, also on YouTube as well. Live on NewsNight on Joy 99.7 FM. NDC MP for Ningo Pram and lead sponsor of the controversial anti-gay bill, Sam George, says the Attorney General, Godfrey Ibadami, has given their bill a clean bill of health. His comments follow a meeting yesterday with the Attorney General at the Constitutional and Legal Affairs Committee over this particular bill. The Attorney General had earlier said in a memo that portions of it were unconstitutional and could face implementation challenges. But according to Sam George, the AG has now okayed the bill.
The Attorney General's memo is dated 19th October 2022. He was responding to an October 2021 letter that had the original format of the bill. In the intervening time, the issues the Attorney General has raised have been dealt with by consequence of the committee's work with the sponsors. And I gave the example of intersex, for example, which he felt, which is what he had actually referenced in his memo, which has been taken out by consensus between the sponsors and the committee. And so had already been dealt with by the committee and the sponsors. And so when he was giving the updated version of the bill yesterday, he realized that there was actually nothing left by way of objection. But if you read his original memo on the original bill, you see that about 80% agreement existed on most of the issues that the bill, the object and purpose of the bill.
Well, Sam George says within 2 weeks, the report to the committee should be ready to be laid before Parliament.
The Attorney General yesterday gave us a clean bill of health. It's his opinion, but his legal counsel to the government, and that carries a lot of weight. The committee has taken cognizance of his opinion and that of the various other stakeholders we've met with. We believe that within a week, the report of the committee should be ready for the final consideration of the committee, which will happen with the sponsors. And subsequently, we believe that within a 2 weeks period, that report should be ready to be laid on the floor of the House. So I can comfortably say that as sponsors, we have a debt of gratitude to the committee, Parliamentary Committee on Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs, led by the Honourable Kwame Ayimedu and the Honourable Bernard Ahiafo.
Thankfully, Sam George joins us on the line. Sam, I mean, I understand that based on all the back and forth and the suggestions from the Attorney General, there have been some tweaks to the original text. Can you share with us which aspects of the bill have now been amended to carry everybody along?
Well, good evening to you and your listeners. Let me just be clear that those tweaks happened months ago before yesterday's meeting. Yesterday's meeting, we brought the Attorney General up to speed because a lot of work, like I said, over the past 21 months has gone on with the committee. One of the examples of the areas where there's been a tweak in the text, but not in the substance of the bill, has to do with what we used to be Clause 6 in the bill. For example, in there you'd realize we listed all the activities that will be criminalized and stated in there that we considered intersex as a biological anomaly, not as an expression of homosexuality, and actually stated that they needed medical care. Now, the committee was of the view that if we were not criminalizing the intersex, then we should exclude it from the bill. Because if you read the original bill, everywhere the intersex appeared, we made an exclusion clause with intersex. And they thought that it was tidier legal work to exclude it completely from the bill. So it's not changed the form of the substance of the bill, but it's changed the form. Another example will be what used to be Clause 2, which was the interpretation section. We chose to put the interpretation section in the front of the bill, earlier on in the bill as Clause 2. But the committee held the view that the drafting style of Ghana's jurisprudence was that the interpretation section always came as the last part of the bill, as the last clause of the bill. And so we had to move that from Clause 2 to somewhere, I think Clause 21 now or something. So those are basically the changes that have happened, but the substance of it has not changed one bit.
So I guess now there is consensus around this now. Is that a fair word to use in describing what you have now?
The committee's report carries largely a consensus position. I mean, the Attorney General's issues that he raised have been already overtaken by the consequence of time and the committee's work. And so he's in agreement or is in tandem with us, lockstep and move with us when it comes to our position on the bill. There are issues that the committee in considering held a position that was different from us as sponsors. And so what we've decided is the committee's report will state what the committee's decision is, or the committee's position is, and what the position of the sponsors are. And then we will debate them on the floor. And don't forget that when the bill comes for the debate on the floor, we are at liberty to introduce amendments. There may be parts of the bill that for purposes of getting it through the committee, as sponsors, we have said, okay, fine, take it out. But we will decide to bring it as an amendment on the floor of the House and debate it with the whole House. And if it's something you couldn't carry out a committee, you may be able to convince plenary to go along with you. So there may be one or two amendments that will come along the way, but effectively the intent of the bill as has been laid before the House will not be changed.
On a scale of 0 to 10, where is your confidence level as far as getting this passed into law between now and when Parliament is dissolved?
That's the end of this Parliament,
yes,
this session, this session of Parliament.
Yes.
Oh, my confidence level is at 15 out of 10.
I see.
I'm extremely confident that it will pass.
I see. Okay. Thank you very much, Sam George. That's the man who has been the key voice in pushing this particular bill through. He's indicating now that there's almost now some of the key thorny issues have now been addressed. He's very confident, he says, overconfident, in fact, that this will now certainly be passed into law. I want to also bring in pretty shortly the chairman of the Constitutional Legal Affairs Committee. That's the committee that is directly responsible for this particular bill. I want to get clarity from him on what happened when the Attorney General appeared before the committee. Thankfully, Kwame Ayimedu, who chairs that committee, joins us on the telephone line right now. Ms. Ayimedu, thank you for your time here on NewsNight.
Right, thank you, sir. Good evening to your cherished listeners.
We've just been listening to Sam George on the back of the Attorney General's appearance before your committee, and he indicates that Godfrey Debo Adami has now given this bill a clean bill of health. Is that the case, and does that now mean that there's consensus around the bill?
If you ask me about consensus around the bill, I do not know what to say, but there haven't been any differences on the bill. When the bill was placed before us, referred to the committee, we thought that we should hear the views of Ghanaians. So we did public hearing. Some were in favor of the bill, and some people were not in support of the bill, and they gave their reasons. That public hearing, everybody was aware of it because it was in the full glare of the public. Then we went into camera as a committee to look at the clause by clause consideration, which we have completed. Then now we also took into consideration the proposals that we got from the public when we did the public hearing. We had written to the Attorney General because Parliament, if anybody is in doubt and would want to go to court, it is the Attorney General, which by law they would have to see. So we invited the Attorney General to advise us on the bill. So the Attorney General, we had a meeting with him yesterday or 2 days ago, and then we had trashed out what is unconstitutional. He had advised us. What is not controversial, he had advised us. So we are about presenting our report to the plenary of the House. I directed as a chairman that the clerks should put their head together and give us a draft report. I'll go through the draft report and then discuss it with my ranking member. Then our report will be ready and then we'll put it before the plenary.
Normally, such
then
reports...
we'll do the second reading and the consideration by the entire House, after which it will be passed after a third reading.
Normally, such reports will come with a recommendation either to approve, or sometimes if there's no clarity there, then you leave it to the plenary.
Well, I'm sure what you want to hear is whether the committee had approved of the bill or
exactly,
not.
Yes. Is that what it is?
The report will come in a form of amendment. My ranking member, Honorable Ahiafo, never stopped saying that the bill would never come out the way it came. So there are several amendments that we have proposed and have discussed with the sponsors of the bill, and we have come to consensus. So it is that report that will place before the House, and then subject to the overriding convenience of the entire House, it would be either passed or not passed in the at the plenary. So there's no report like we are not supporting the bill or what. The bill in its entirety have been reviewed, and that's what we will be placing before Parliament.
As far as what has happened so far goes, if you look at it, do you believe that this will get passage before this Parliament is dissolved?
Well, yes, I am very positive about that. But you see, when we started this bill, or when the proponents of the bill came to Parliament and laid the bill, or when it was about laying, members of the public, especially, don't take offense, please, especially the press, were of the opinion that very week the law was going to be passed. And I said, no, that is not the procedural way of going about bills. What the bill will be placed before Parliament, Parliament, after the first reading, will refer it to the appropriate committee. Then the committee will deliberate on it. Because of its nature, we chose to do public hearing, and people didn't understand us that time. But we've gone through that. It's behind us now, and the committee, in its wisdom, had come out with amendments and proposals, if you choose to call it that way. And then that will be our report. Our report, when we submit the report, will tell Parliament what we have gone through, the things that we are taking into consideration. then we would propose the amendments to the plenary. And then, Mr. Speaker, when they get the report, we will go through the report. So I can't be exact what time is going to be passed. It depends on the business of the House.
Okay. Thank you very much, Nyumedu, for time here on NewsNight. And I see both of them now indicate that they're confident that now this, as has been tagged that the anti-gay bill, will be passed into law before this parliament is dissolved. I want to take it to Nigeria now, where today a Nigerian Senate candidate had been shot dead and the body burned. This Nigerian senatorial candidate from one opposition party and the driver of a campaign minibus belonging to another were killed in a series of coordinated attacks in southeastern Enugu State ahead of Saturday's elections. Nigerians are due to elect their next president and lawmakers against a chaotic backdrop of armed conflict in the northeast, high levels of violent crime everywhere, and shortages of cash, fuel, and electricity. The Nigeria IGP, Osman Akali Baba, has ordered the restriction of vehicular movement across the country between the hours of 12 and 6 p.m. Police spokesperson Olumawaya Adejobi says the move is necessary to secure the environment for the safe organization of elections.
The Inspector General Police, Federal Republic of Nigeria, IGP Usman Akali Baba, has ordered a restriction of all forms of vehicular movement on roads, waterways, and other forms of transportation from 12 a.m. to 6 p.m. on election day, that is 25th February 2023. With the exception of those on essential services, the Inspector General of Police sternly warns all security aides and escorts to desist from accompanying their principals and politicians to polling booths and collation centers during the election, as anyone found flouting this directive will be severely sanctioned.
I want to take it to Nigeria now. I want to bring in Kingsley Bassi, he's a Nigerian broadcast journalist. Kingsley, thank you very much for agreeing to speak to us. So from everything we're hearing, things look pretty dire with just hours now to that elections on Saturday. Tell us more.
Yeah, good evening to you, and thanks for the opportunity to talk Nigerian politics. So, real quick, so one fundamental issue in this election would be security, definitely, and that's largely because, excuse me, in the build-up to the elections, we've had several election-related violence, so it's been attacks on political candidates. One was the presidential candidate of the opposition People's Democratic Party a few months ago when he campaigned in the northeastern part of the country. As a matter of fact, before now, the heat of terrorism in Nigeria, Borno State, and investigations and further prosecution, arrest and prosecution of persons who carried out the attack. We've not seen that happen, and that you'd imagine should deter others from doing same. But you mentioned in your news a few minutes ago another attack, and this time, sadly, the unfortunate death of a senatorial candidate in Enugu State. This time, southeastern Nigeria. Just to mention and put things in perspective, that has also been the region, the southeastern part, the region where the secessionist movement has thrived for a while now.
Yeah, I mean, and that's been a big challenge with the secessionist movement. Bassi, we're just having a challenge with that connection to you. I apologize there. We will definitely return to this conversation. Hopefully we can have a better connection with the internet permitting as we build up to that Nigerian elections. I'm grateful, Kingsley, for joining us from Nigeria. Let's do sports now. Ms. Bao.
Yes, Evans. Well, Executive Council member of the Ghana Football Association, Dr. Tony Oben, he has been reacting to the conversation on the low stadium attendance at the various Ghana Premier League fixtures. And according to him, the assertion is not factual. He says that the situation is rather peculiar to Accra and Kumasi and across other centres like Samre Boy, Aduana Stars home ground. The attendance is quite encouraging, but admit more needs to be done to attract more fans to the stadium.
Base. Because it's Accra and Kumasi that seem to be
to have been suffering that. Go to Samra Boy and tell me that fans don't go to the stadium. Go to Takwa and tell me that they don't go. Go to Bechem. Fans go.
Yeah, so that's Dr. Tony Oben there. And of course, the big game between Manchester United and Barcelona is coming off at the Old Trafford. And Evans, you're definitely looking forward to a win, aren't you?
Oh, of course, Ms. Val. Thank you very much for that. And that's it.